Hi there, I'm Emily Schaller, and you're watching the RoxyF Boltcast. Before we get started, there's a few things we need to go over. First off, nothing on this podcast should be considered medical advice. Medical advice should only come from your doctor. Views expressed on this podcast are solely opinions of the guest and not necessarily opinions of myself or the RoxyF Foundation. Enjoy this episode of the RoxyF Boltcast. This episode of the RoxyF Boltcast is sponsored by Vertex.
My name is Kvam. I am 45 years old. I was diagnosed with CF in 1984 when I was 4 years old.
Oh, so you are older than me.
I am, significantly.
Oh, what, 2 years?
Hi.
I know in CF years, that's like a decade though, let's be honest. All right, happy early birthday.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I think we were drawn to each other as like you were my inspiration because like you were biking so much and running so much. Were you always active as a kid? Like what did you do as a kid activity-wise? And then what got you into this endurance biking?
So, my parents signed me up for everything. I was bad at everything, but I played a lot of soccer and rec basketball and a little bit of t-ball when I was a kid. And back in the days where you didn't have to specialize early. And, I grew up skiing in the winter and we were outside kids. And I started running. And I ran in high school and in college. I wasn't winning anything, but I was fast enough to run. And then I didn't get into cycling until after grad school in my mid-20s.
Yeah, that's the transition, like you go from running to cycling when you get money.
Not even, yes, money helps for sure. But for me, it was really connected to my CF health at the time. Because as soon as you leave a collegiate running program, you lose your coaching and your teammates who get you out at 3 o'clock every day and your race schedule that you don't have to plan or think about. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. I was in grad school full time. And even if I was running 20 miles a week, it certainly wasn't 80 miles a week, and I got slow.
Jesus,
and then I hated running. It was a very different relationship with sport and running. And I ended up not running for a couple years. I was still adhering to all my CF care and everything, but it wasn't enough. And I got really sick. And I lost a ton of lung function. I ended up hospitalized after putting off like not being in the hospital for way too long. Because I was definitely one of those people. And in the recovery from that, I got lucky. I recovered a lot of lung function and basically said I need to redesign what was successful in college. And I started cycling. At that point, it was a new thing.
Sweet.
That I got into it that way.
Obviously, we know that running is good for CF, especially the lungs, but overall health. But running obviously kept you at that peak or higher PFT level. But like, were you still fighting like infection and like seeing if you were having an exacerbation, your performance decline? Or like, what was the correlation of maintaining your CF health with exercise, especially at the collegiate level? Because that's intense. That's a lot of miles.
It was challenging.
And weight. Talk about weight. Like, how did you keep weight on with all these miles?
The honest answer is I didn't. And the risk and the danger of collegiate sport, especially collegiate running, CF or not, is that it can be wildly unhealthy, right? You're at the knife edge of peak performance and walking off the edge of the cliff and getting really sick. And, straddling that was difficult and something that I was not always good at, because once I discovered running was the motivator for adherence to care. I did not care about being 25, being 40, being a parent. I thought all of those things were frankly out of reach. All I cared about in 1997 was being as fast as possible on Saturday. And because that was the single goal, I adhered to all my treatment and I did all the things. And I worked really hard. And in college, it meant I didn't drink, which was hugely beneficial to my health. And I was focused on being a performance athlete. And turns out in college, often when you're lighter, you're faster. So I was pretty okay with weighing 135 pounds and running 80 miles a week. And maybe, if I'm honest, titrating with enzymes to make sure I stayed that weight. Like, this is not healthy. This,
wow.
I've spoken about
this is wild.
at
Okay.
the North American CF Conference and stuff, like this is disordered eating. And this is using
exactly right.
a CF med as a tool to, not make good choices and be so short-term focused on being fast that you compromise long-term health.
So you exercise through CF, right, at a very high level. And I know were you on the clinical trial for the first modulator?
Yes.
Or did you just start? Got it. Okay, so I want to get into that now.
I was in, so to be clear, I was not in a phase 1 or phase 2 trial. I was in a late stage, like expansion phase 3 trial, frankly, because for a long time, my FEV1 was too high. But I was on the first generation med before approval because of a trial.
How did it improve your running or biking at the time? Like, did you see a major difference? Were you like, holy shit, I'm going faster? But again, your PFT was a little bit higher. So yeah, what was that like?
So I guess at that point, I was not at my fastest or best. In the timeline, I was finishing law school. Law school cost me 10% of my lung function. Just because I always got sick in like October, early November. And typically that was time to jump on a PICC line and do what had to be done. And frankly, I was not gonna not do final exams and get behind in law school. So I would put it off. I'm like, well, I'll see you December 15th when finals are over. And like that, I paid a price. That first modulator sort of held the line.
Okay.
And I didn't recover a ton. And frankly, the first modulator was not as amazingly groundbreaking as future ones were. So it's not like I woke up one day and all of a sudden I had 20% more lung function.
Was there a moment for you, and I'm not sure if it was after the next modulator that you started or just like getting through life, where you're like, oh, I am going to get through law school, have a career, get married, have kids. Was there a specific moment, or was it coupled with a specific treatment where you realized like, shit, I am going to be alive and have a future?
I would say no. There wasn't, because I was always in the camp of, well, plan A is plan A, and we're going to run plan A until the wheels fall off. And we're going to make the I hate the term bucket list, but we're going to make the list of goals, and we're going to live like this is what's possible, and we're going to do it. It was just making it work. I needed full-time employment. I needed access to healthcare. I needed to be in a field that was sustainable. And the kid conversation is, I think, the most closely related to the modulator conversation. My wife and I got married wanting kids. And it was sort of just this distant thing that like, yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to do that. We're gonna have a lot to overcome because we knew about male infertility and I had been checked, and like we knew that was a problem. But it was always a kind of off in the future and not specific until the first modulator arrived. And it was basically like day one of the modulator was like, now we can really have a conversation. And then that started a long, hard adoption journey. That, 6 years later, we became parents. But I mean, it was, it took forever. It was rough.
Do you disclose, like when you started the process, do you disclose you have CF?
Absolutely not. No, I thought it would hurt our kids. I didn't. Okay. And, and we talked to our agency about it. Our agency knew. But basically, I had a letter from my physician saying, there's no reason why Chris won't reach the age of majority of this kid, which is the exact same thing any other adoptive parent has to have.
So for me, this is something that's kind of come up a lot more since the big modulator was approved. The idea of survivor's guilt, because we have access to this medication, and now, unfortunately, a smaller percent of our population and friends and community don't have it. Did you struggle with that early on, either with the first modulator or your second round, or the one that really gave you a boost?
I guess survivor's guilt is big, right? And to me, it's a lot bigger than, are you in the 10% of people who could even have access, right? To me, it's much more about, I knew a lot of people in the 80s or 90s who worked as hard as I did who are not here.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
My birth cohort from my childhood clinic is dead. There's like 2 dudes and I'm one of them. And at some point, it became much more about, given that I am lucky, regardless of hard work, because I knew lots of people who worked really hard. Clearly,
Yep.
the world is multivariate. I worked really hard. I got really lucky. I had constant access to healthcare. And given that I, flipped heads 50 times and got lucky, how do I live my life knowing that others didn't? Right, so to honor the losses, it's like, well, I am going to live the fullest life I can possibly live.
It makes sense, right? So you can compartmentalize, but then the advocacy stuff I do want to talk about, because you have worked and spoken and advocated with CF Foundation. You've done like policy stuff too, right? Like to help get, I don't know if you've worked on like copay accumulators, or the state of New York has like a program like Michigan has, like a Michigan Special Healthcare, to make sure people.
The thing I'm most proud of in terms of the advocacy work, I helped write the clinical care guidelines for integrating mental health care, screening, and treatment into clinic.
That's huge. That's like what Dr. Quintner worked on forever, right? And then, so what other advocacy stuff? I mean, you're a lawyer.
Yeah, so in terms of advocacy stuff in the CF world, I'm on the Financial Wellness Committee, which is sort of the meeting point of all these issues, in a way that maybe the Mental Health Committee was 10 years ago. But when I look around at the world, both at home and abroad, the chasm of disparity that exists, and its increased relevance to who lives and who dies is wild.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And how much money your parents have should not define how you survive with CF. Reaching back to your conversation about realizing one day, wow, I'm going to be 25 or I'm going to be 40 and I got to have it together.
Yeah.
That's really hard if you spend your early 20s running up 40 grand of credit card debt. And we know those people. Like, those people exist.
Yes.
And so that is a perspective change. That's about a mindset. That's about long-term versus short-term planning, regardless of how well off your family is, right? Understanding, wow, if one day I happen to be unable to work and need to apply for disability, would it be good to know that certain assets are protected and certain assets aren't? And, home ownership is super important and stuff like that. And I think that a little bit of knowledge goes a long way in determining people's outcomes with a lifelong illness.
Are you doing that? Like, are you talking to parents? Are you having like conversations and doing these types of things with parents? And
I mean, occasionally, maybe once a year, I get invited to do like a family education day, and it definitely comes up a bit. But mostly it's been in the context of the CF Foundation has been publishing like one-page handouts or, some kind of blog post or whatever about financial wellness. And everything the committee has been producing has sort of been in that vein. And providing stuff to clinicians about things to think about. In terms of decision trees, if this is the setup for your patients, don't be surprised when they're not picking filling a med.
yeah, I think I filled out a couple of those surveys already that were sent to me by CFF, like barrier to medication. Some of it is financial, like you said. Some of it is, especially with modulators, like that your life has changed so much that you don't know what to do, and maybe that could affect your mental health, and you're losing your sick identity, so people stop taking it. I know people directly that have gone through that, and it's like, damn. So we know you you were on the first modulator. Then when did you start the next one, or the?
I skipped a couple in between. So because I'm G551D, I skipped to the next couple and then was on the big one. And that change happened right around COVID. And I started it, and I was in the long follow trial, but then it also got approved for my genotype shortly thereafter.
Now with that one, did you notice any major change? Because
that one, yes. That was instantly like, here's 20% lung function, like on day 2. And that was pretty cool. And at that point, like I had been flat for so long, and I guess when I was taking the first modulator, it wasn't like I had the huge gain, but it was like every day was a good day. Okay. I didn't have the dips.
I can
didn't
totally
have the
relate to that.
exacerbations. I was held constant at, an FEV1 in the 70s and whatever, and like, hey, if that's the new normal and it always stays that way, great. But then over the course of years, like that did degrade a little bit, and that modulator alone was not enough to just lock me in there. And then to start the next one was like, whoa, I'm back.
Now that you have, your wife and 2 kids, and we're getting older, we talk a lot about exercising for longevity. So kicks back when we started the program, it was like, you should run because it's good for your lungs. And now, since modulators have come out and we're like projected to live longer lives, so you should run not only for your lung health, but your overall health and longevity. Every disease that old people get, we are at risk for getting now. So like, do you have that kind of mindset a little bit? Like, all right, my kids are here, I have to prove them, which you do, and I want to get into like the importance of exercise and being active, but then also like, I have to do it for me and my long-term health. And know what your limit is, right? Your limit now is...
The biggest change in at least my mental approach to living with CF has been, as a dad, there is now a lot more pressure to be alive in 20 years than I ever felt pre-kids. In my 20s and even into my 30s, don't make me promise 45 or 50 or 60, right? I will do my best to be as healthy as possible. I will maximize that time. I will, however we're defining success, I will do these things. But, if that means it's over at 45 and I did my best, then that's going to be good enough. And now that is absolutely not good enough. In the context of being 46 with a 3-year-old, like that's not good enough. So there's a pressure there that parenthood has imposed that never existed before kids. And like, exercise is important, but it's also part about showing me. Like, you're here and you're doing this, and if you're doing this, just like always, it'll be okay. And keep doing this, and this is the way. And it helps that there nothing else reduces those anxieties. Like being able to maintain the same level of, basically I maintain half marathon fitness at all times, and sometimes we amp that up to do bigger stuff. But the baseline is, if you had to go out and run a 2-hour half, could you? Yes. I think that's the measure of fitness.
That's awesome.
And we maintain that all the time. And I get to maybe sleep.
I want to say I'm very happy that you've transformed and gone through all the things, ups and downs, and this is where you are now with fitness. I think it's cool. I think it's very healthy for you and your kids, but tell me, how does it feel to be a dad?
Oh, I mean, it's the best. Especially as a male with CF who was told this was not going to happen. Like, this is the ultimate victory, right? Like, forget the rest of it. It is the culmination of everything. The ultimate reward. And, no, it's the best. It's, yeah. And nothing, like I said, forget any kind of fitness accolade or anything. This is the ultimate victory over CF.